I have done Sausalito finishes in the past, and I was looking to do another one. So I was looking for the perfect dresser that I could purchase in order to do this. I found a hooker dresser, 9-drawer dresser on Facebook Marketplace, and it fit the bill for what I was looking for. I wanted something that was fairly square, no ornamentation, no fluffiness, none of that stuff. So this dresser fit the bill, and so I'm going to show you in this video, one, a priming mistake that I made, and then two, a two-phase layering, glaze layering technique that I tried to better match the Pottery Barn Sausalito style. So here is the root of the product that I created for myself. You might notice at the top and the drawer fronts, and you really can't see the sides, but they're all sanded down to bare wood. I got lazy, and on the trim portions between the drawers and between the sides and the drawers, I just scuff sanded, and I didn't take the original finish down to bare wood. That is the beginning of my problem. So I'm getting ready to spray paint this with Sherwin-Williams Extreme Bond Primer. And once that's dried, I will show you what happened. Now what you're looking at is the dresser sprayed with 2 coats of primer. You will notice a difference in color between the top edge and the trim just below it where my finger is pointing. The previous finish is bleeding through the primer. If I had sanded that down to bare wood, I would not have had this problem. I'm not sure what was in the previous finish that's causing this to happen, but unfortunately for the trim parts of this dresser, I'm going to have to put on a shellac-based primer. And so that's what I'm going to do. And then once I've done that, you'll see that it all goes away. Okay, shellac-based primer has dried, and you can see there's no bleed through. It looks just like this, no bleed through. And it's already been sanded. I didn't show that. But I did want to point out one thing, and it's really clear on the side. Move this camera a little bit. So you can see where the grain is showing through still up here. If I was going to be painting this a solid color and wanted it to be smooth, I probably would fill this grain. But since I'm doing a Pottery Barn Sausalito style finish, which I'm going to create a faux wood grain finish on top, this will help enhance what I'm going to create. So I don't want to cover it and I don't want to hide it. And I'm hoping when I put the base coat of paint on there, which is going to be a very light tan, that it's not going to fill this in very much. So I'm getting ready to spray the first of 2 coats of the base paint onto the dresser. I'm using the Sherwin-Williams natural linen. It's in a satin finish, and since I already had this paint, I didn't want to go buy some more because I really wanted a matte finish. But I'll show you how I took care of that later. But the natural linen is a very light beigey color. I've used darker base coats when I've done this in the past, but so I'm experimenting to put on a lighter base coat with this 2-phase glazing technique that I'm going to use. So we're going to spray this with 2 coats, let that dry, and then we'll start with the first coat of glazing. So both glazes that I'm making is custom, and I'm making my own glaze. For the primary glaze coat, I'm using 8 ounces of Minwax Polycrylic in a matte finish. Then I'm going to add about 2 ounces of water. And then to that, I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of Rustoleum Java glaze, and then about 1/8 of a teaspoon of black paint, and about 1/4 teaspoon of white paint. Once that's all mixed together, what this will create is a very light, neutral grayish brown glaze, very subtle, and it's going to give kind of a slightly desaturated look to the piece as a first coat. I also forgot to mention that I added a very small amount of Floetrol just to give it a little bit more of an open. So if you recall earlier, I said that I really wanted to use matte for this base coat, but only had satin, and that I would fix it. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm taking this Scotch pad, and I am not removing paint, but more of just removing the sheen, I guess, and giving it just a little bit of a bite so that the glaze will adhere to it a little bit better instead of sliding around on a satin finish. So once I have that done, then I'm going to start applying the glaze. The tools that I'm using is a brush just to get the glaze on, a deck brush that I'm going to be removing the glaze off of the wood with, a smaller brush, kind of like a deck brush. It's kind of, it's used for edges. And then I may use this broom. So we'll see if I decide to use that or not. So we're going to go ahead and start applying the glaze. So for those of you who have never applied a glaze in this manner, what you want to do is just get the glaze on. You're not worried about it being very pretty. You just want to get the glaze on the wood so that you can remove it, basically. So I'm doing the top. I've got to do the sides. And once I have that done, then I will be able to take the deck brush and we're going to start removing glaze. So in this step, we just simply take the deck brush, we move it across the surface to remove glaze and give it a little bit of grainy look. So we want to keep the brush pretty dry. We don't want to keep reapplying glaze that we just took off. So you notice that I'm wiping the brush off every time between passes. Then I'm taking the smaller brush. It's a little easier to use on the smaller edges than it is the deck brush. But what you're aiming for is just you'll know it when you see it, I guess. You want just a slight, grain look, and but not too heavy, kind of subtle. And when you like what you see, you stop. So I've let the first coat of glaze on the test drawer to dry overnight. And you do want to dry at least overnight because you don't want the second layer of glaze to reactivate the first layer. And if the first layer is not completely dry, that could happen. And we don't want that to happen, obviously. So this second glaze I'm putting on is mixed somewhat like the first one. I have 8 ounces of clear glaze. Again, the Minwax matte polycrylic. 2 ounces of water, about a tablespoon plus about another teaspoon of Rustoleum Java, and about a quarter teaspoon of black. So it's slightly darker than the first glaze, and you can probably tell that from the video. So again, once we're going to get this on, then we will start to wipe it off with the deck brush. So we're going to do the same thing as we did on the first coat of glaze. And yes, I did use a deck brush on the front just because I didn't want to have to pick up the other brush, and it worked out okay. But then we're going to start wiping this glaze back just like we did the first time. So, and I've got a little drippage on the side, which is what I'm wiping down. But now I'm going to wipe off the glaze on the top. You notice it's slightly darker than the first coat of glaze, and so we're going to wipe this off. And to the point of I like the way it looks on top of the first coat. And then after that, we are going to actually use the broom to it's kind of in this case, a blending stage. And so I'm going to go back and forth. And this is also, it does remove some glaze, but more than that, it blends what you just did together to make it a little bit more subtle. And so I'm going to do this back and forth until I like what I have, and then I'll stop. So what this step really did was to blend the two glazes kind of together, and you notice it also brought out the grain that was already there, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. So I'm very satisfied with how the drawers came out, and so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the drawers, and we're going to then move on to the dresser itself. So I've already applied the first coat of glaze onto the dresser. This is the second coat. And I'm doing this, why I really am showing this, it's the same as what I did on the drawers, except here I'm doing it in sections. The dresser is 5 feet long, and it does take a bit to go back and forth and get this glaze off. And what I did not want to happen is for the glaze to start to dry up before I could get it finished. So it's easier to work in sections. And so I'm making a section, about the width of the deck brush. Once I have this on, then I will start to take the deck brush and to wipe back. So just like before, I'm taking my deck brush and I'm going back and forth, and I try to go the whole length of the dresser in one pass. And then I'm going to, get this wiped down, brushed down, and to the point of where I like it. Also, it's important that since you're doing this in section, you also want to keep glaze off of sections you're not doing. So you notice that I have glaze on the front of the top of the dresser, but not on the trim that starts going around the drawers. So I had to wipe that off, and actually there's a little spot there I can see on the trim that I did not get wiped off very well. So I hope that's not going to give me an issue down the road. But at any rate, we're going to take the deck brush and get all this off, and then we'll move on to the next section. Before moving to the next section, I am going to blend in what I've already done. And just like before, we're going to take the brush and we're just going to go back and forth, and just to create a subtle blending and a subtle faux wood grain look. I don't want anything pops out. I want it to all be very, very subtle. So we'll do this until we're done, then we'll move on to the next section. Now I'm applying glaze to my last section of the dresser. I also overlap a little bit so I can kind of keep a wet edge, so I can make sure that the two sections blend together. You want this to, which kind of reactivates what you already have there. And you want to do this because you don't want to see a different line, between the two sections that you did. So I'm going to put this on, and then we'll take the brush again, and then we'll take the broom again, and then the top will be done, and we do this then to the rest of the dresser. So the last step before putting on the new hardware is to apply the top coat. I'm using Minwax matte polycrylic, and usually I set my sprayer up with a air power of about 3, and I turn the little knob on the canister 2 or 3 turns, and that seems to work out pretty good. So I'm going to put 3 coats of the matte polycrylic on here. I'm going to sand between each coat, and then when that's done, we're going to apply the new hardware, and then we will be ready to see how this turned out. And this is the finished project. I'm very pleased how this turns out. I think the top looks like the faux wood grain, I think, looks fairly real to me. It's not even, just like natural wood would not be, but I really like how this turns out. Now, the actual color of this turns out to be closer to a Pottery Barn fog color, which I was not necessarily going after, but after seeing this, I really like it. It's a lot lighter than the Sausalito styles I have done before, and I think that I'm going to probably do this again one of these days. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't make the mistake I made on the priming, but give a 2-phase glaze approach to your next flip if you try to do a Sausalito style. Thank you for watching. If you've not subscribed, please do, and I'll see you on the next furniture refinishing project from the next season.